Sahana Bhavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we start out by living this ninja mode. Anxious ninjas, looking out for what to keep, what to maintain, how to keep it as long as possible. You know, stressed out ninjas. Me versus the world. How can I extract and keep that? And that's okay. There's you cannot really blame anyone because, right, we look around and that's what everyone else is doing. So that becomes an assumption. If you're born in a family that's able to teach you very early on, you have an advantage. But even if you're not born in such a family, you can still catch up very quickly. So it's never too late. So quickly you see that being a stressed out ninja, it doesn't quite work, right? It's not really conducive for the kind of life that you envision. And you then see further that every action has a seen and unseen consequence. This is the basis of that first entry point, that first maturity point, perhaps that the first official entry point that a person, you can call him responsible, like I'm taking accountability, I'm becoming responsible, is we could say that you're starting to see that your actions have consequences, and those consequences are affecting you and those around you. For instance, that if you start to speak calmly, suppose, right, then not only will you have a drishtapala, where the person will speak calmly to you, you will attract some, right, polite people, but also if you continue to speak calmly and deliberately, then that becomes an orientation. You have long-term impression now of speaking calmly, and so you become a calm person. Conversely, if one's angry, then you have a drishtapala, and that is the person and I have a conflict, whereas the unseen is I become a angry person. So it started off as a one-time thing. Once upon a time, I was an innocent person. I looked at the world in a innocent fashion. People pressed some buttons because they didn't know any better. It's not like they were doing it intentionally, because they too are born in in an environment that's telling them, here's how to be, here's what to do, here's you have to show yourself, right, and so on. And then they press your buttons, and you develop an orientation of anger. Now you become an angry person, and then you look back and you say, what happened to that innocent, happy, cheerful youth of mine, right? I was that person, and now I've kind of lost a little bit of that. And we say it's not too late, right? Because you can reverse that. It takes some effort, but you can reverse that. And this is what we call your orientations. It goes inside your vast collection of, call it the pool. Suppose that you jump inside a pool. It's a warm pool, right? So you really want to jump inside it because it's a warm, comfortable pool, especially on a cold day. Now, when you come out of the pool, do you come out dry? No, you carry water with you. So now that pool, you can call all of your total orientations. You jump inside the pool of orientations. Call it your sanchita pool. You come out taking some prarabdha water on you. Call it that, droplets. Prarabdha droplets, right? And now, if that pool is filled with sewer, I almost got a little bit of that. On one end, it's got sewer. On the other end, chlorinated water, because that's how the pools are. There's a corner that's clean, another corner that's some redness, some blueness, some greenness, but it's all generally mixed up. The colors are generally mixed up. So it's a pool of different colors, different orientations, different tendencies. And you come out of that pool and you got all that water dripping on you. And that water doesn't dry off, unlike a towel. You carry that water on you for 90 years. You're like, wow. But every day, one drop dries out, right? Because you're moving. And so the air and all the worldly wisdom, it sort of just dries that out. But you have water on you for 90 years. And you say, how did I get this water? Why do I have, like a little worm here, and a creepy crawly there, some insects here, a nice puppy on the head, a snake around like Shiva, reptile wrapped around. And you say, the snake's scary, all right? But I think I'm going to do what Shiva does. I'm going to embrace the snake. Okay, this is the snake that I came out with. My pool is full with snakes. So instead of resisting and going, oh, it's my karma, why? You say, this is what I got. Let's make the best of it. For example, Siddhartha Gautama, the former Buddha, which means awakened, he was given his astrological chart by his father to an astrologer. And the astrologer said, this man has two paths. The first one is he will be a great, successful king. He will inherit what you have, and he will be a famous king. The second is he will become a renunciate, and he will become a great leader. His father, having heard this, decided to hide Gautama from the world of disease, old age, and death, as long as he could, because the father had his own ideas. The father, too, came out of a pool carrying his own stuff, and so he wants to, right, naturally project that onto his son. This is what parents do, right? And it's okay. So he keeps the son away from the real world until the son decides to take a stroll and sees exactly this disease. Someone's coughing, someone's like crooked, and he sees a casket with a dead body. And he throws himself a question. It starts a question. He says, why? Why does this happen? And then what I've been living is not all there is to it. There has to be more. If this is what ultimately everyone goes through, then what's the point of living? Because I will too be like this person in the casket. I too will be crooked one day. So Gautama had a reaction, and he decided to take the path of a renunciate in order to answer this question. So this means that though Gautama came out of his pool of Sanchita pool, that pool carried different possibilities. The water that you carry with you carries possibilities. On one hand, on your shoulder, you have, like I said, a creepy crawly. On the other, you have a love for music. On the other shoulder, you have love for numbers. On the top of your head, you have tendency to care for people. This is why some like to care, like they're in a hospice or a hospital. And you say, I could not do that, right? I could not have so much effort to care so much, but you do. But I love numbers. She loves music. They love philosophy. They like architecture, right? So everyone loves something. And whatever you love, you find natural to you. You find easy or familiar. Somebody else doesn't. You find it familiar. There are children who get born and they look at the Gita and it's just familiar. It's familiar. No exposure to the book. How is this possible? They're just born in with ordinary food, ordinary pet. They didn't feed them some superfood, but they're just familiar with it. But you're not. Whereas you're familiar with music. You just get the notes. You get the language of music. You can touch people's hearts, move them, produce emotion through music. You know how to do that. You get it. Somebody else doesn't. And they're fascinated. How do you do that? You say, it's just easy. You come with a certain tendency. Somebody else comes with a different tendency. Whatever tendencies you come with, there you call your possibilities. So prarabdha, think not of it as something that is fixed. You come with multiple prarabdhas, multiple possibilities given to you. And depending, like Gautama, what you choose to put your effort into, you develop. Gautama came with materialistic side of him, you know, the love for luxury, love for pleasures, love for power, love for being a good king. He came with that, but he also came with an extremely philosophical, nuanced mind. And he decided to exercise the latter, the nuanced mind side of himself. So think not that you are a fixed entity where a person says, I am a ninja in this world, I have to protect myself because you know, I have very little. You have so much more. You just have to develop those skills in you. So this means that we're all given this potential. And so suppose someone's given a crooked body, okay, a genetic anomaly. That's their prarabdha. That's the water they're carrying from their pool of sanchita. Okay, that's the truth. But I can still work on my diet. I can still practice mindfulness, and I have some level of purushartha effort in order to negate those effects of my prarabdha. So this means both of them are given to you. Prarabdha for sure, that is called your destiny. This, right, you're familiar with Gautama being a leader in the materialistic sense, but also being a spiritual leader. You're given both of those capacities. Which one you choose to develop, that's up to you. So this is the journey of life. And the question then is, even if with this prarabdha that's compelling me to pursue a certain path, like Gautama, he was compelled to pursue either the king path or the, right, renunciate path. I am compelled, that is for sure. You're compelled. If you were not compelled, you would, right, not be alive. So everyone is compelled. Like Krishna says, there is not anyone who can be free of action. You are made to act. That's just the truth. You are made to act. According to what? According to your prarabdha. According to that water that you came out of your pool with. According to that, you act. So even if you act or don't act or do something different, those are three options. Kartum, akartum, anyata kartum shakyam. All three options are given to me, to everyone. Still, according to verse 38, you will be, or you are, continuing this process of being a doer, being stuck in the cycle of samsara. That means birth and death. So now, verse 38 says, what paradigm shift will take me out of it? And that is the paradigm shift of 38. Verse 38, Nahijnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate tat swayam yoga samsiddhaha kale natmani vindati.
In this world, there is indeed no purifier equivalent to knowledge. One who has in time attained preparedness through karma yoga naturally gains knowledge in the mind.
Yeah, so karma yoga and knowledge, these are the topics. So this knowledge, as we said, this paradigm shift is the paradigm where you recognize for the first time that though you're born in a family and then you so-called have this prarabdha, right? You have this so-called prarabdha. Actually, you have no prarabdha. You have no parents. You have no sister. You have no brother. You don't have a mom. You don't have a dad. You don't have moksha. You don't have ignorance. You don't have knowledge. You don't have a body. You don't have thoughts. You don't have emotions. You have nothing. You have no punyam. You have no papam. You have nothing. You're like, wow. So that's a surprise. What do you mean? That's the paradigm shift. And then you realize, so all those good things that I'm done supposed to get my money's worth, right? I've done so many good things, my charity, I get nothing back. No, you get nothing back because I'm already everything and I'm free of everything at the same time. Thereby, this is the paradigm shift. So you see that on one hand, while I took that snake for a rope, that snake was real for me, right? That snake, I talked about the snake. I pampered the snake. I gave snake food. I beat the snake. I told the snakes, happy birthday, snakes. I lived my whole life just seeing snakes all around me. When I finally see that this snake is what it actually is, what it actually is underneath all of that, you realize I was just really pampering my idea of myself, an idea that persisted as long as I thought that I was a snake, that others were a snake, that there were snaky salesmen that are trying to, get one up on me, that I should get one up on them like a ninja. Okay, so there's no actual snake. All that is here is Ishvara manifesting as this long, beautiful, or you don't even have to use the adjectives. You use adjectives as you wish, but just a long story that we call this world, the world of the story of the world, the most the most amazing, mysterious story that's ever been told, and that story you're living in. And you say, okay, this story is wonderful. Now it's time to see the truth of this story. And the truth of the story, it's only what I hear. There's no such thing as karma. There's no such thing as death. There's no such thing as life. There's no such thing as good or bad. These are all just modifications of this intelligence, rearranging, reshuffling themselves like zeros and ones. All you see is just zeros and ones all around you. Like on a monitor, you see so many images and so much software and so many beautiful graphics on your monitor. And you're fascinated and you spend 14 hours every day on the computer or even longer, just fascinated in the text, in wisdom, in the movies, in drama, in history, in geography, and all these things that are on the screen. But ultimately, everything behind that screen is just zeros and ones. So like that, Ishvara is like the zeros and ones, that intelligence that is constantly reshuffling, reorienting itself in order to account for all of the changes that are going on in the world. If I now don't think that the world is different from Ishvara, the world is nothing but Ishvara. Ishvara is in the form of the world, just like those zeros and ones are in the form of the things that you see on the screen. So therefore, now that I see that all that is here is Ishvara, I can now start to have a different relationship with the world. Instead of being this kind of, I have to take from the world. It's not the world, it's Ishvara. I'm only here to be given, to figure out my truth. Ishvara has always been here, taking care of me in the form of air and space and food and love from people and the gurus and the teachers and the Shastra and the faith. All of that's being given to me. So now I no longer have this concern to go out there and search for some big Ishvara out there. Ishvara is obtaining as the very world that I'm experiencing, because the Ishvara is both the material cause and the efficient cause, the nimitta karanam and the upadana karanam. And where is material not? Material is everywhere. Material, you're breathing material in the form of air. So you're breathing Ishvara. Your lungs, which are able to take that Ishvara in the form of oxygen, they, to little capillaries, they take that oxygen and they, distribute it throughout the body. That body too is Ishvara. The whole thing is just intelligence. And so the paradigm shift is then asking, then how do I come to that clarity, right? What happens? Well, like with anything, this is not a big question. How do I come to that clarity? How do you come to any kind of clarity? Is it easy? Is it like a one-click button? No, it takes time. Some classes, things go over our heads, don't they? Some classes, they're like, I've heard this a lot of times. Some classes, it's interesting. Some classes, it's somewhere in between. But not every class can explain the whole vision at once. That's impossible. So this does require time on your side, patience on your side, a little bit of leeway for mistakes to get made, for mistakes to come together. So you're just kind of realizing this is how the journey happens. There's no secret formula to this knowledge. There's no magical fix or one, expediency or some mantra, chant Om Namah Shivaya 100,000 times, even though I totally believe that at some point. And so it's genuine for you. Right now you realize this was all there to help me out, to transverse, to come through this ocean and come to the other side. In fact, there's no other side, is there? The other side was only as true as I thought in my taking the snakes. One snake, there's a snake over there. Now, what is there to transverse? What is there to cross? All there is here is Ishvara. So if I cross from here to here, it's more Ishvara. So this knowledge becomes more and more firm. The more we listen to the teacher, the more we open ourselves up to this knowledge, it changes your entire paradigm, how you experience yourself, what you choose to do and not do. Now you're a lot more clear. There's not so much fear anymore. Before the fear, I'm going to get punished. By whom? Ishvara is not a punishing entity. Ishvara is not for you or against you. This is a wrong understanding of God. Ishvara is just impersonal laws that work according to eternal principles. That's why we call it Sanatana Dharma. It's a dharma, it's a system which is beginningless, which never changes, just lasts as long as it lasts. In fact, it lasts forever. That's why it's Sanatana, it's Anantam. Thereby, aligning myself to this order, the Sanatana order, I get feedback. Ishvara provides me feedback in the form of people, in the form of body. There's pain in the body. That's Ishvara saying there's some pain in the body. You can work with it, go and fix it, do something. Now you can choose to ignore it. You can choose to do something about it, not do anything, or do something different again, right? And then you get feedback. And then like this, you move through this whole journey of Ishvara. Now, the second is how do you get this knowledge is through karma yoga. Now, karma yoga is, see, there's always two goals behind anything that you do. Karma yoga introduces the primary goal. Your primary and secondary goals now change meaning. When you introduce karma yoga, the reason why you do things now is not to, as you've been doing before, yoga and kshema, right? Protecting and accumulating, or and so on, right? Protecting and accumulating. Now it is to evolve so that you can understand this deeper and more precisely, keeping with what the vision wants you to see. So this means now every secondary goal, everything that I do in this world, work, children, staying healthy, staying alive, whatever it is, they become secondary goals for the sake of my primary goal, which is firm vision in this knowledge, right? That all that is here is one without a second. That is the primary goal of the karma yogi. So this means the moment you introduce karma, which is backed by yoga, action, backed by the principle of yoga, in other words, the principle of wanting to see behind the realities, wanting to know more than meets the eye, wanting to appreciate this divinity that's all around me. That's what makes karma yoga a yoga. That's what makes karma a yoga, turning every action, every challenge into a chance to develop yourself, to cultivate good thoughts, to rid of those thoughts that are not longer serving you, and so on. So this means when, right, when now something happens in your life, then you no longer say, oh, you know, why me? I'm to blame. Others are to blame. No longer, because is that serving your vision that all there is here is one? No. This means now a karma yogi says, when they look at someone doing something bad, right, or inappropriate, or not keeping with Sanatana Dharma, or that is not conducive for the well-being of the environment, you have two choices. One, you can say, resort to your normal patterns and say they're like this and this, right? And just reinforce they're a fool, they're nobody, they're a loser, and so on. But then a karma yogi steps in and says, is this kind of an opinion about someone, is that keeping with what I want to accomplish? Is that really, is that helping me see all that is here is Ishvara, or is that isolating that person away from Ishvara? And then you say it's isolating them away from the order. And then you say, is that conducive for my vision? Because what I want is to reconcile things. That's Advaita. I want to reconcile. I want to understand why, instead of saying, no, I don't want to understand, so let me push you away. So I want to reconcile. Why do people do what they do? And you say, because they're just under a lot of pressure, like anyone else. We spoke about this last week. They're under a lot of pressure. And so, right, the boss, the wife, the economy, this and that, right? We're not all powerful. Everyone's got a limited tolerance, limited knowledge, limited capacities. So the person can kind of, you know, show some irrationality and, you know, some complexes. So now you understand this and you say, no, they're not, you know, a loser. They're just a person going through the life journey, which is beginningless, and they're trying to figure things out. They came out of this pool called Sanchita, carrying water with different creepy crawlies like anyone else, and they're just trying to figure out their ways. So thereby, you start to see that the knowledge of karma yoga or karma yoga leads your mind into a conducive, knowledge-friendly mind because you are thinking in the light of realities. Okay, you're aligning yourself with what is. You're refusing to think in the light of how you used to think, by discarding people, by writing them off, by saying they're a nobody, they have no more chance, I hope something bad happens to them. None of this, because it is not serving you. That is a karma yogi. They're not doing this because that's what the Gita says. They're doing this because they realize through their discernment, it doesn't help me by pushing things and just discarding them for my comfort. Because though it seems comfortable initially, what I'm really doing is I'm dividing realities. I'm pushing things aside. But on the other hand, what Vedanta says is, you need to reconcile things. You need to understand that nobody has all the knowledge. Nobody gets it completely. So people are allowed to make mistakes. That's what the place called Earth is about. You're allowed to make mistakes. And that's keeping with a karma yogi. Now, suppose I take this knowledge out, you strip this knowledge, and you say, oh, I made a mistake. I'm a loser. I'm a nobody. I'm not going to get this. I don't deserve the Gita. You know, I'm supposed to be perfect. But then the guru comes in and says, no, that's wrong thinking. Drop that. You're allowed. This is a place where people make, and learn. It's a learning school, Earth. Earth is a learning school, end of the day. And the highest graduation you can get is moksha. And you say, I've done it. Thank you very much, Earth. I came exactly for what this place was given to me. It's like this. Suppose there's an institution which is called negotiation skills. Now, when you go to this institution, what do you learn? Negotiation skills. Do you learn cooking? No. So now that institution has a big label called communication skills. Now, what's the big label on Earth? You don't see it, but it's there. You need the scriptures to tell you. It is called moksha. That is the ultimate. Then you have come to the right place. So this and why is it moksha? How do you prove that? Because moksha means freedom. Now, why do people do everything? Why do they go to communication skills? Because they feel bound by a lack of communication skills. So they're going to get some freedom by being a better communicator, better influencer, better persuader. When I go out into the world, people will love me more, they will like me more, and I will feel less bound, less limited, less small. I will feel bigger. Now, no matter what school it is, ultimately what you're looking for is moksha. Now, what is the ultimate school called moksha? It is a school where you realize all this is anatma. I alone am atma. And then you have to reconcile that further. You cannot stop there. This is called Neo-Vedanta. This is not self, and I am the self. You have to reconcile that. That was just provisional. First, you start with neti, discarding 5 koshas, 3 bodies. We've done this. And you go through the koshas. What is the physical body about? What's the subtle body about? What's the causal body about? What are the 5 koshas about? You're really getting to know the instrument that you thought you were. You're getting to know it really intimately. And then you say, okay, so all of that, you don't need the physical body to know that you are. You don't need the thoughts because you're there before the thought, during the thought, and after the thought. So you don't need the thought to exist, to be a know, to know that you are. You don't need a causal body because the causal body is a series of desires. If you were as good as the causal body, then when the desire goes away, you would go away with it. Okay, so you're not of these 3 bodies because you can be without them. And deep sleep also, is a very good analysis into this. And then you say, okay, now that I've negated, I have to now take what I've negated, I have to bring it back. But before you do that, you say, then who am I? I am the self. And then we talk about you're that which doesn't change. You're that which illumines, like the lamp in a house, or light nowadays, not a lamp, that's from the Upanishads. Like the light in a house. The light remains the light. Whatever happens in the house is only illumined in the presence of the light. You cannot know about an object if the light turns off. Therefore, the light, which is awareness, compared to awareness, it's a light because of which all experiences, all phenomena, all changes, all variables, all fluctuating experiences, they are known to be taking place. Why? Because I am that light. I am the light which knows in the presence of it, there's a person who's going through life journey. And that same light is the light that shines your body, your life. So now you say, so I am that light. I am not the body. I am not this. I am not that. But then you don't stop there. If you stop there, you're still in duality. Now you have to reconcile that. You say all those things that I pushed back, that I pushed away, I have to bring back and say the question, what's the relationship between myself and that which I call anatma? And then you go into the final teaching. In fact, the final teaching is Ajativada, but one teaching before Ajativada is Satya-Mithya relationship. And Satya-Mithya relationship, you realize that everything, there's a dependent nature. And you do an analysis that everything has reducible into something else. It's mithya within mithya within mithya within mithya. Everything is reducible into something smaller until it's just concepts. And that those concepts is the blueprint from which arises, like I said, zeros and ones, the blueprint from which arises the universe. We call that Ishvara, all knowledge and all power. And Ishvara itself has no reality apart from Brahman, awareness. And then you can demonstrate this. You can demonstrate this, for example, right now, you're completely normal. There's no thoughts taking place. You're aware. And in the presence of that awareness arises a thought. Now, that thought is nothing but intelligence in the form of that thought. So you were completely okay without Ishvara in the form of a small thought. Now, don't think that Ishvara is some different intelligence. Whether Ishvara is a total intelligence or it's little intelligence in form of my thought, it's still Ishvara. So if I can be without a thought, if I can be without Ishvara, Brahman can be without Ishvara. That's what we call dependence, Satya Mithya. So Ishvara is Mithya depending upon Satyam. So this was also talked about in the course. We're not going to go into detail, but I'm just giving you a heads up. Then you go into, finally, the teaching, Ajativada. Ajativada will be discussed in my retreat, but Ajativada I'll talk about much later in the course. But it's basically, now that you realize that you've collapsed everything into Satyam, there's a Satya-Mithya relationship. If I ask you the question, is there such thing as Mithya? You need to think about this really deeply. Is there such thing as, why do we then use the word Mithya initially? For the same reasons why we used Neti initially. Understand? So now we say Satya Mithya, the chair resolves into the wood, but is there such thing as a chair? No, that's Ajativada. Therefore, all that is here is Brahman. There's no Ishvara, there's no Jiva, there's no thoughts, there's no karma, there's no karma pala. All these are just provisional concepts to talk at a language that the person starts out believing. You believe in the snake, therefore the teacher talks the language of snake. The teacher takes on the job of being a snake, a snake charmer, right? So the teacher takes the job of being a snake charmer because you're into snakes. So I'm going to play the role. Like, yeah, snakes are bad. You know, they're dangerous. There's mamba, there's cobra, there's this, there's that, there's brown snakes. Let's have a party with snakes. But then secretly, the teacher's like pulling every snake out, throwing them aside. In fact, there's no way to throw them aside because there's no such thing as a snake. Just removing your notion that there is a such thing as a snake until you realize there's only Brahman alone here. But Satya Mithya gets you there. So this is the process of knowledge. Now, what else is knowledge? Knowledge is when you realize this so-called doer. What do you mean by doer? What it does exactly? You have to ask the question. I'm a doer, I'm an enjoyer. You have to now pose the question, what does and what enjoys? The instrument that's made to enjoy and do, right? So what does? The muscles do, the hand does, the neurons do. So in other words, when you say doing, you're just referring to all the movements of the physical body and the subtle body. And in collective to that, you say there's doing. But now you realize both the body and the neurons are nothing but intelligence. So there's no actual doer. It's just intelligence rearranging itself into a so-called doer, which you believe yourself to be. But it's just a person with certain proclivities, tendencies, impressions, owing to their sanchita karma, which is going inside this world and acting according to what they're given. So you realize then there's no such thing as a doer or enjoyer. And this so-called individual awareness of mine, we also call this Chidabhasa or Pratibimba Chaitanya, or reflected awareness in English, or reflected consciousness. The so-called individual awareness, that awareness is this much, that this person is aware, And it's different, right? And that awareness is mine. It's my awareness. So when I say reflected awareness, this is a very confusing word in Vedanta. Chidabhasa pratibimba chaitanya. Just understand it very simply. It just means individual awareness. Awareness that I feel is over here. So where's the error? Where's the ignorance? It's when you think that the individual awareness is mine, right? It's therefore different from yours. This is Vishishta Advaita, okay? So this means now you have to pose a question. What Vedanta says through an analysis, which I've done before, it says that this individual awareness is not different from total awareness. Because if it were, the question now poses why? How do I prove it's not different, that my awareness is not different from yours? Because Vishishta Advaita has a problem with this. Vedanta solves this. How? It says, if my awareness was different from your awareness, then I would have to give it some attributes. I would say it's blue and your awareness is red. That's the only way you can logically say that two things are different, that they have an attribute, but an attribute will always be in reference to your body or your mind. So this means I say my awareness is divine and your awareness is like, lost. You got lost awareness, right? So this means lost and divine, they're just concepts you made up. They're your own definitions. They're definitions of the subtle body. They're definitions of the English language that you've just attributed onto awareness. But awareness itself doesn't have an attribute. If it did, you would not be without that attribute at all. You will be with that attribute 24/7. You will be swimming in that attribute, that I am a lost soul. You'll be a lost soul in sleep. Oh, I'm a lost soul. I'm a lost soul. In waking, I'm a lost soul. In dream, I'm a lost soul. You're having the greatest time of your life. I'm a lost soul. But you don't have that. You have all forms of thoughts. You have, I'm a lost soul one day. Next day, I'm a found soul. Next day, I'm none of this. Next day, I'm a happy guy. Next day, I'm a happy girl, right? So all these attributes, they're only pertinent to the mind. They do not stick to your awareness. Thereby, this so-called individual awareness is not individual. It is the total awareness, which is why in Vedanta we say Atma is Brahman. Individual is the total. The space inside the cup is the same space as outside the cup. Why? Because the space inside the cup doesn't take on any attributes. The space outside the cup doesn't take on any attributes. Therefore, the space inside the cup is attributeless. The space outside the cup is attributeless. Thus, it is one and the same space. In that same way, awareness, so-called reflected awareness, Chidabhasa, Pratibimba Chaitanya, is actually the total awareness. That is knowledge. And then you realize the very awareness that's shining on this mind is the very awareness that's shining on your mind, and that awareness I actually am. And from that awareness arises the entire universe through the power of Maya Shakti, and from that awareness, this world is now being, experienced as in the form of a person, in the form of a guru, in the form of a student, in the form of different philosophies, like in a dream. You're inside the dream with convincing mountains, with convincing people, with convincing friends, with convincing mother and father, and you say, that's my mom. I was born. I was born. And then you wake up and you realize, was the jiva actually ever born? Was the so-called creation, the world, was the creation ever born? No. All of that was just appearance of myself. There was no actual physical mountain that was born. There's no physical person who had any real reality, because what real means, as we said last week, or whenever we said it, is that which you can never not find. It's always found, and it's never different than right now. There will never be a time when it's different than it is right now. That means you cannot say, I don't know this reality. Therefore, when I know this reality, it will be different for me. What I will know in the future will be different than what I know now. No. The awareness in this moment is the exact same consciousness in the future. So this is thereby knowledge. So what's the summary? Atma is Brahman. The individual is the total. And while the individual is wearing a body, we call this upadi, I can be okay with that. I can speak with other bodies. I can appreciate my temporary form as a wave in the ocean. I can, shake hands with other waves. I can make love with other waves. I can do all these things, but I never lose the reality of who I am. I am that which is the truth of all waves around me. There's never a moment when one wave, whether you call them lost or found, that it's not other than the water. So this is the knowledge of a wise person. And then it says, the next part of the verse, the one who in time has preparedness comes to know this. So thereby, in time, this vision clicks for you completely. That means the picture is now clear and you have no more doubts. And there's one thing that you can say, which comes from Kena Upanishad. It goes like this, and this will be a test for you. A brilliant student answers. Teacher asks him, who are you? Do you know this that I've just spoke about? And the student answers, I can't say that I know Brahman, but I also can't say that I don't know Brahman. Teacher is thrilled. And then the teacher says, wow, what do you mean by that? And then the student clicks on the unmute button and tells me.
Because I exist and I'm aware. And that's indisputable. Yet I'm operating from this body-mind, this individual standpoint. Therefore, it feels confusing. I'm mixing up my awareness with attributes.
Okay.
So I'm not quite understanding it because of the conflicts in life which cloud my mind.
Okay.
And therefore, it's confusing at times. But I'm aware that I exist, and there's no doubt that I exist, and I'm aware.
Okay. I love your courage, excellent starter. So I'm going to ask the question again. This is a wise student saying, I can't say that I know, but I also can't say that I don't know. Profound statement. Ashish, thank you, Lorena. I really appreciate it. Ashish?
Yes, so Andre. So I can't say I know because you cannot know it objectively. So if you say that I know, that means you don't know it like as is. And I know it because it's self-revealing. I know it directly, like we say aproksh anubhuti, right? That's what I feel.
Excellent. Ravikant?
Sorry about that. So it's a focal point thing. So you can approach that from two different perspectives. So once it is realized that it is tantamount to existence itself, we don't have to declare what is not, need not be declared as what is. Right? So
I love this language. Okay.
So from that perspective, obviously, I don't have to say I exist because there is no other state I know of, and I don't have to declare that. Right.
When Ravikant speaks, you have to be super, like, he's always like next level, right? It's like, wow. I love it.
Yeah. And the other perspective, right? When the words really, where basically the clothes of words, when you have to use it on your thoughts, and at that perspective, when you're talking about, then it's not that you're not aware of it, but somehow actually you are provisioning and allowing the part of communication that is happening. Then you would say, yes, I know.
Okay.
But it doesn't have any effect on the truth.
Exactly. Good. Okay. Pankaj?
I want to say that I am both. I am the form and I am the content. When I am focusing on form, then I see myself as a form. When I'm focusing on the content, I see myself as the content. So it is depending on what my focus is, I am that.
Okay, excellent answer. Okay. Meenakshi? So again, I cannot say that I know Brahman. I also can't say that I don't know Brahman. Meenakshi?
No, I cannot say that I know Brahman, because if I say that, then Brahman becomes an object of knowledge. It is something that makes it different from me. So I am the knower, the knowing subject, and that becomes the object. And therefore, I cannot say that. But at the same time, I am the knower, and that knowing object and subject both merge in me. So there is no difference between the knower and the known. So in that sense, I know the Brahman.
Okay, it's a good spin. Although I would say that I'm a knower so awareness is the knower in reference to the mind. Otherwise, we cannot say that awareness is a knower, because knower is only, Sakshi is only in reference to the mind. So there has to be an object, and in reference to that object, awareness is the so-called knower. But awareness itself is not a knower. It's just it's Sat and Chit existence, which is the nature of awareness. But I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Thank you.
Pass, 100%. Divya?
Yes. Our intelligence, our buddhi, whatever we have been given is given from Prakriti, from material nature, is made of material nature, the intelligence, the mind, everything. So with it is already limited. The material nature, whatever we have, is already limited. So we cannot understand really Brahman from our materialistic mind and intelligence. So what we know is a tip of the iceberg. We don't really know the reality. We have only a glimpse. We are not entitled to the doors are not open to us because it's only material, it's limited. This is my understanding.
Okay. This is very truthful.
And
okay. But that only
I don't know if we will be able to ever know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That answers half of the question, though. So what you answered was, I cannot say that I know, but the other half I also want to hear is I also can't say that I don't know. That you have to answer. Yeah. So
this one, I will say that we know only what we know is a tip of the iceberg.
However, this know is I know completely, right? So I cannot say that I don't know Brahman, but I also can't say that I don't know Brahman. In other words, I know Brahman completely, but I also can't say that I don't know Brahman. So
just like the Prime Minister of my country, I can't say I don't know him, but I know him, right? I know his name, I know his what he looks like, but I don't know him personally. I haven't been with him I don't sit with him I don't have dinner with him, I don't have a chat with him, but I know him. In the same way.
Got it. Okay.
I don't know him personally. I don't know his likes and dislikes. Yeah.
Good. So you know him, but you don't know him personally, completely, right? So you don't know him completely.
Yes.
However, here in the Kena Upanishad, the student is saying, I know Brahman completely, not partially, but completely. So I will give you 50% for that answer because you haven't answered that I know Brahman completely, because I do know Brahman completely. That's what the student is saying. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Michael?
Sorry about that. I would say people have already answered this, but I'll just put it in a slightly different way. I can't know Brahman as an object, so I can't know it objectively. It's not separate from me. And I am, and I know that I am.
Okay. Good. Radhika?
Hari Om, I almost had the same answer as Michael. If I'm not standing apart from Brahman, so it's the non-dual state like you explained last week. Like it's in the third stage of Ashtavakra Gita where Janaka is standing apart from, I know Brahman, and Ashtavakra says you've not yet reached there, you can't know Brahman when you are Brahman.
Good.
So, thanks.
So I will conclude. Arkiri?
Oh, thanks. I was probably going to say the same thing a different way, in that in both cases, knowing is a doing, is an action.
Okay, that's creative. Knowing is an action. Okay. Of the mind. Good. Okay. So, Ashish, Meenakshi, Michael, and Archana, I just want to hear from you.
Hari. So the moment I say I know Brahman, that means I am seeing the Brahman as a separate object. It is the Brahman has to be experienced. I cannot explain it to someone else that I know Brahman, Brahman's. Then I'm going to talk about the form, I'm going to talk about the characteristics and all. So the moment I say I know Brahman, that is Dvaita Vada.
Mm-hmm. Okay. However, I want to know the other answer. I also can't say that I don't know Brahman. I
agree, because it's an experience. Like the experience of sugar. If someone has never ate sugar, how will I explain them that, you have to experience it. So I have eaten that sugar. I know its taste, but I cannot explain it that how it is.
Okay. So I'll conclude. So Ashish, Michael, Meenakshi, Divya, I would say your answers, and Archana is very close, but I would say your answer that I just mentioned is the closest to what the student actually said. He said, I cannot know Brahman because Brahman is not an object like anything else in this world, where you can say, I got to know what happened last week, at 3 o'clock on Sunday, because that's in a memory, that's an image in my mind that appears and that disappears. So it has a time-bound duration. It doesn't obtain in 3 periods of time. It's not in the past, present, and future. It's only when I summon it through my mind, it appears. Whereas I also can't say that I don't know Brahman because I've heard the teaching. I've heard the teaching, I've understood. I know that I cannot put it into some form, into some image in my mind. But at the same time, I know that I'm evident because like the eye, the physical eye, the eye can't say that I don't know myself because they're seeing. That must imply I exist as an eye. I also can't say that I see myself because to see myself, I'm turning the eye into a physical object, like an image of the mind. Therefore, Brahman is not an image in your mind that can be known in that sense. I also cannot say that I don't know Brahman because the entire teaching has unfolded so far. I have listened, I've contemplated, I have really thought about this deeply, and I've come to see that in the presence of the seen, there must be a seer. In the presence of the 3 states of experience, the waker, and all the things that happen to the waker, and the so-called CEO, the boss in the waking state, and the so-called dreamer, the fearful person, running away from the tiger, and the deep sleeper, all those 3 states are only known in the presence of the 4th, which is consciousness itself. So this means consciousness, there has to be something other than the 3 states of experience for me to be distinctly, for them to be distinctly seen to me, the one that is the 4th, Turiya. Therefore, this is the answer. And then you say, I can't believe that I didn't know about that which is most obvious, that which was so pure and so obvious more than anything else. It's almost like, you're giving a speech on a podium and you're giving a speech filled with lies, one lie after the other. And the audience is like cheering you, they're applauding you. But behind everything that you say, there's a voice in you that says, this is a lie. This is a lie. This is a lie. Say, I was an astronaut. I went to the moon. I was a president. And people are like, oh my God, you're amazing. But underneath the voice, this is a lie. This is a lie. It never ends. This is a lie. Like that, in the world, you're searching for things. You're looking in this philosophy. You're looking at that philosophy. But underneath, there's this voice. This is not it. This is not it. This is not it. There's more. There's more. There's more. Until you come to that place where you come and are totally certain about what is. And that voice no longer bothers you. Now you're no longer a seeker. You have found it. You have found the answer. Now your search is over. I also use an example of going to a party of loud people and cheers and lots of talk and lots of laughter. And I was having a great time. And you go inside this party. And this party has lasted for millions of years, suppose. Millions of years you've been in this party. And throughout the party, there was always a voice, a soothing voice, a very gentle voice that never ended, like the tampura, right, of the instrument, like zzz, like constant. And that voice is so beautiful, so soothing. And every time you spoke to people, you went through conversations about politics and religions and schools and yourself and your childhood. But throughout that, you had bad times, you had good times. This voice was just there in the background. It never stopped. And you know it was always there. There's something about you that knew, that always knows it's there. Not knew, but knows it's always there. But somehow the distractions of the world keep on immersing you into conversations. And you keep on kind of going back and forth. The voice is there. You take a little comfort in it. Ah, so beautiful. And then again, you go back into the world, right? Into this party, the conversation, the sensual, the sex, the this, that, right? It's all so delicious. And you go back, little like sleep, little the voice of God, right? And then you keep on going back and forth, until you start to see this back and forth is not really a good deal end of the day, because it always disappoints you. Every time you go back, it's almost like this imagination told you're going to have a wonderful time, and you go there, you didn't really have a wonderful time. It was just a time, but it wasn't really wonderful. And then you keep on going like this. And finally realize that voice was who I was. That awareness, the light, was my true nature. The most auspicious, Shiva, the most auspicious, the most pleasant, that which is the most attractive to all beings. That was my real nature. And thereby, you come to, the end of this journey. However, what helps you expedite this process? Verse 39, that is the process of having Shraddha. Shraddhavan labate jnanam tat parah samyatendriyaha jnanam labdva param shantim achirenadhigacchati.
One who has faith in the Shastra and the words of the teacher, who is committed to that knowledge, and who is master of one's senses, gains the knowledge.
Thank you. Okay, so the verse starts with the statement, one who has Shraddha in the Shastra and the teacher. Okay, so that means there has to be, there's this thing called Shraddha. So the one who comes to knowledge is the one who has Shraddha. So let's take, again, a journey, how we start. We start with a preconceived notion that unless I see something, I'm not going to believe it, right? Which is okay, right? Unless I perceive it with my eyes, hear it with my ears, I'm not going to believe it. Now, if you have this notion, are you then going to, when somebody tells you, Atma is free from limitations, you are free from all limitations, are you even going to listen to that statement if you have already come with a pre-decided notion that unless I see it, I can prove it with my ears and eyes, I'm not going to believe it? Is it going to happen? No way. So this means that unless I have Shraddha, an open, curious mind, willing to investigate, look deeper into it, then nothing's going to happen to me. There will be no no change for me whatsoever. I will remain exactly the same in my so-called comfortable bubble. So the role of the teacher thus becomes to help that student who has at least that level of open-mindedness called Shraddha, to show them deeper than meets the eye, to show them deeper than they can perceive with their own eyes and ears and their own mind. So the whole point of the teacher is to elevate you a little bit higher than your own thinking. Otherwise, there's no point of a teacher. And never too much, where they're like speaking, and it all sounds tremendously great, but it's just going flying over your head. Those are also wonderful teachers, but when you come to see, you don't really want to waste your time anymore. You're saying, look, I know it sounds lovely, but you need to sometimes just drop your language at the level of a common person, speak to me like a human being, I know you're living in your world of philosophy, but I'm not there because I've got to work. I've got, kids to feed. I've got things to do, right? So just drop yourself a little bit, just be normal. Now, when you have that teacher, that is a real refresher. So the point of this teacher is thus to introduce you to the teaching and show you that what we call a pramana is not something that is forced upon you. A pramana is that which is simply a ladder, like a rung of a ladder. From the bottom upwards, I get to the roof. So one ladder at a time, I am helped, and I come to see the whole vision. So the pramana is thus a means of knowledge. And how do you get to this means of knowledge? You need Shraddha. Now, here's two situations with Shraddha. Suppose you have Shraddha, but little commitment. Suppose you're a teacher right now, and a student comes up to you, and they have so much faith in the Vedanta, in the teaching, in the vision, but they have no commitment. Now, what is commitment? Commitment is when you work hard. Commitment is when you know that this is so important for me that I must get this. It's that sense of that will that I must get this. There's no other way. It's a matter of life or death. I've got to get this. That's commitment. If you don't have that commitment where I must get this because it's so good, then are you going to have commitment? No. So what leads to committing? What leads to a student staying in those times when things go over their head? What leads them to stay there? They have to know the value of what they are learning for you, not because the teacher is saying how Advaita is the highest and all this. You have to see it for yourself. The teacher's job is to be a communicator of this vision. And then through your own discernment, you get to see, this makes sense. This is keeping with my experience, if you think about it, of course. And this is helpful. It kind of offloads this burden of seeing world through a black or white eyes. It helps me reconcile. It helps me remove this inner angst of having to constantly separate things and saying how you're different from me and I'm different from you. And I don't feel like so free from that. I feel like pushed down. And here Vedanta is saying that you are that which is the whole. You are the whole. There's nothing missing in you. You are the whole. There's nothing outside of you. The whole thing is yours and you're free of everything. And you're like, wow, that's an interesting vision. I think I want to investigate into this. And then you say, that's what I've been seeking all my life, freedom from limitation. Every school that I went to was getting me there, but it also introduced some limitation. It said that the Lord is there, all right? And I was okay with that. It was better than not believing in the Lord at all. But still, I felt limited. I was like, but I'm still small, and I still have to go to that Lord. Will he accept me? Am I good enough for him? Will he reject me? I still felt limited. I still felt small. And then the next school shows up and shows you that actually Ishvara is not some big person out there. Ishvara is everything. Every glory is his. And you say, wow. So no matter what I worship, I'm worshiping Ishvara. And then that vision now offloads this idea of a anthropomorphic being who's away, who I'm to be afraid of, who's going to punish me. And then you start to have a different relationship with the world, vibhutis of the world. And you say, I still feel limited because here I am worshiping the world, but then who am I? Am I still different from the world? I still feel away from the world. I feel like a limitation. I feel small. It's a huge world out there. I know it's all Ishvara, but I'm still worshiping Ishvara. I'm still different from the world. Again, you feel limitation. And then Vedanta, Advaita comes to you and says, let's investigate that too. The truth of you and the truth of Ishvara is one. The difference is at the level of name and form. Ishvara is the total names and forms. You, the being, the person called one individual with your name given to you by parents, that is one of the names and forms. Ishvara is the collective of all names and forms. Don't think that Ishvara is only what you see. That's wrong. All those things that have happened, that are happening right now, and will happen in the future, seen and unseen, known and unknown. And then Vedanta shows you, you are that very whole. I'm not talking about your body. I'm talking about the truth of you and the truth of Ishvara. That is the real definition of you. So don't think when I say you, that I'm talking about you, body. I'm talking about Satanchit Brahman. I have faith in the teaching. I have trust in the teaching, but I have no commitment. How is this going to work out? Do you belong in this category? Suppose that's the case, write it down. That's you. That's for me to pray and say, Lord, help me to gain commitment, and then go and follow up. Help me be clear what I can change and be clear what I can't change. This is a prayer of the Karma Yogi. Help me know those things that I can clearly make some changes in, and let me let go of those things. Let me accept there are other things that I cannot change. Otherwise, you waste all your time trying to change things that you can't change. You come with a certain prarabdha on your body. If you got a worm, you're not going to be a little nice pet. That's what you got. So if I got a worm, let it be. What can I work with? That's what I work with. So I've got Shraddha, but I have no commitment. In that case, you need to be very clear. How do I develop that commitment in myself? Because you're there like literally 90% of the way. You just need that commitment. Shraddha can take you a long way. The other is like this. I prostrate to the teacher. I do my namaskara. I do my prostrations. I do all the right etiquettes. But I have no faith. I have persistence. I do all the right things. All the cultural things are there. But I secretly don't really have faith in the teaching. Ouch. Because here what happens is, here you will prostrate to the teacher and you will ask a question, and the teacher will do the best that they can to answer it. And you will agree, yeah, okay, cool. But inside, you're not really taking the answer seriously. Why? Because the mind is going, yeah, but there's Buddhism, there's Vishishta, there's Sankhya, there is yoga, there is this, there is that, there is Taoism. Yeah, okay. You're still in that mode of doubting. The student keeps on coming back with the same questions. And teacher's like, I said this many times before. And it's almost like they keep on going back to the same story. They don't want to let go of their story because they secretly know that Advaita is not it. There is something better out there. And so you're in this limbo mode. You're not really into this. You're not really into that. In this case, stop wasting your time. What do you truly want? What school do you truly want to be in? Where do you really want to be? And be completely honest to yourself and stay there. Because you can't do this to yourself. You cannot just sort of waver around a little bit this, a little bit that, you get nowhere. Therefore, verse continues, it says, and he is the one who is the master of the senses.
I can't say that I don't have faith, but still there is a lingering doubt about accepting that reality. I understand, I comprehend, it's kind of, I know it's beyond emotions and everything, but I really cannot say, raise up my hand and say that I have faith.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that you have commitment?
Yes.
Not so much faith in the teaching.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't say that I don't have faith. No, I will say that I have great faith in the teaching, but it's not convincing in my, I'm not able to accept that. You know what I mean?
Got it. So now this is a different option. So I have commitment.
Yes.
I have the Shraddha.
Yes.
But despite their presence and sincerity, the knowledge is not quite, I'm not able to own up, right? It's not clicking. It's not like, wow, got it. Yep. Sold. Here, I offer my ahamkara to you. That's not there yet. That is a matter of time. because we started out, how do you go through this journey? Through time. Time, not one class is going to click. Some classes will click, some classes won't click. That is beyond your control, my control as a guru, anyone's control. That is in Ishwara's hands alone. That's why we say the final one who holds the key is the veil remover. Otherwise, if we could remove it, even with all your sincerity, your commitment, and your Shraddha, you would have pressed the button a long time ago. So this means we just have to just be patient and continue this journey sincerely. That's the only solution to what you're saying now. Okay, and that's okay. That's okay, because it's like riding on the road, and hundreds of cars are on the same road, and we're all going on this long 3-hour drive. And what happens? One time I'm overtaking someone, and then I kind of get a little bit tired. Now they overtake me. So we're all kind of overtaking each other. We're all kind of, oh, get out of my way. You're too dangerous. You're too loud. I'm going to overtake you. Let me show you who I am. I'm the number one here. I've got a better car. And then you stop over at the station and you refill. And now you see them also refilling. And then you go first. And then I lost them. And now they're speeding, double the speed. They go overtake you. But you all come at the same place. So this is the life. And we have to be acceptable. This is how it is. And that one also accepts or is the master of one's senses. This is very simple. We spoke about this. Your senses report the world. That's all they do. They have no control. You open your eyes, it will see. Open your ears, as there always are, it will hear. As far as your level of management is concerned, it is now that the information has entered my mind and triggered a thought, what will I do with that thought? That's the only level of, as far as control you really have. What will I do with my thoughts? Okay, let's get some ideas. I will entertain that thought. Possible. I will fulfill or follow up on that thought. Possible. What else can you do with your thoughts?
Meditation helps you let them rise and then sink again and just observe them as they go past.
Write about your thoughts.
Oh, I love it.
Put it.
Write about it on your phone, on a piece of paper or something. Put them out.
Yeah, understand that what is causing that.
What's the cause of the story? Yep.
That's right.
Realize that they're not personal and probably none of your business.
Yes. It's none of my business, all right? So leave the thought alone. Or you can even say, thought, you're not mine, actually. You're not my thoughts. You're coming through this mind, but you're not really mine. Ashish?
Andre, this is not my own, but I read it in a book. You can use it to do self-inquiry. Just say who got this thought. You say me, and then you investigate that me.
Love it, love it. And investigate what's the nature of that me, right?
Nature, yeah.
So in other words, using a thought to bring in Vedanta teaching. Of course, it's not for everyone, because it depends on, how busy you are or where you are. Maybe if you're in a bathroom, in the shower, maybe you apply that.
I think whenever you may be working something, but it doesn't require your full attention, then maybe you can utilize this. But if something needs your attention, you need to focus, then you cannot use this technique.
If you're like a heart surgeon, you're inquiring, what's the nature of this thoughts? Okay, so thoughts can be used as friends. All right, so let's not be afraid of thoughts. Okay, we always are going to have thoughts. We do all have thoughts. Thoughts are life. Okay, just you have to find a way to deal with this. This is how it is. What is the result of this sense mastery and karma yoga? So we talked about karma yoga, where every goal is a means to an end, right? Every secondary goal, my life, everything that I do is for the sake of making a knowledge-friendly mind, but it's also to recognize my full nature. That's karma yoga. We talked about sense mastery, where the senses are open, they will produce thoughts, and what you do with those thoughts, you need to find that out. That is really a personal thing, right? The teacher can tell you something, but you've got your own way. You always know your ways better than anyone else. So this is your thing. Now, the question is, what will these masteries produce? And the verse ends by saying, Param Shantim Adhikachati. I will discover param shantim, the highest peace. In other words, what will happen? Resolution of my existential angst. That goes away. When I say resolution, it means going away. My existential angst that I'm incomplete, that I'm small, that I'm not good enough, that I'm insignificant, that I'm inadequate, that goes away. In other words, now you are able to let Ishvara use your instrument according to the needs of the whole. In fact, that's always been happening. I just, through my own sense of ideas, my likes and dislikes, I've just been sort of relinquished that, taking that control back, saying, no, I want to do what I want to do. I don't care about the world. I want to do what I want to do. So now Ishvara is able to operate through your body to give to the world, in a way that the world deserves. And what Param Shanti means is that there is no greater peace that you can get from knowing who you are. There's no greater peace in heaven or in Brahmaloka or in any world at any possible time, or being any deva with any position, Brahmaji you are, there's no higher peace that you will ever get. Until that Param Shanti, what kind of Shanti will you have? We call that relative Shanti. Shanti, that is a state of mind. That's an emotion where sometimes you have to build it. Sometimes it lasts, it goes away. That's the kind of Shanti that you develop through Karma Yoga. That's relative Shanti. For example, when you're eating and you're hungry and then you eat and you're full. How do you feel now? When you're full, do you feel like ecstatic? Is that like a feeling of being ecstatic when you're full? I suppose you're really hungry and you're just perfectly full. Are you now like excited, emotionally excited? No. So what is this feeling of fullness? It's definitely not on the other spectrum where you're sad. You're not happy either. So what is this feeling of fullness? It's really fun, isn't it?
Satisfaction?
Not lacking.
Not lacking. I like that. Not lacking. Satisfaction. It's not really this positive emotion in the sense of like, oh, I'm full. I'm so happy. It's just like, not even words can describe it. Just full. No words. But you know it. When you're full, you know it. Now, suppose you say, oh, but when will I get this? When will I get this fullness? He says, oh, achirena. Not before too long. Like, and what kind of ambiguous statement is this, right? When will I get moksha? When will I get this? And then the guru's just, there, Krishna, calmly, not too long. As the last answer you want to hear, you want like your dates, you want astrology style, meticulously planned out. You want the whole, the whole picture. He gives you this, not too long. Like, what do you mean not too long? Well, what he means by that is it depends on your perseverance. It depends on your commitment. It depends on how much you really want this. Like shoving your head in a bowl of water. And I'm keeping your head and I start to read a book. Chapter 2. Just a little bit longer. And you're like, oh my God, come on, Andre, I trust you. I'm like, no, just a little bit longer. And you're like on the verge of death, right? You just, the only thing that's in your mind, in your world, in your existence is, I want that breath. Nothing else. I don't want my scholarship anymore. I don't want, that's not even in your mind. I just want that one breath. It's so focused now, so laser precise. That is the kind of commitment that you have. And that kind of commitment gives you the knowledge very, very quickly, thereby not before too long. That's kind of a universal answer. Hey kids, you can use this the other way around. When are you gonna get your scholarship? Oh, not before too long. Hey, let's when we're gonna go for a holiday? When are you coming over? Not before too long. Oh, no.
Andre, the famous one that kids say in the cars, are we there yet?
Are we there yet?
And the mother says, soon. We'll be there soon, even though there's hours to go.
Or the Indian style, right? And just 5 more minutes, just 5 more minutes, sir. And you come back, just 5 more minutes. 3 hours have gone by. No, just 5 more minutes. Huh?
No, Indians would never say that. They always say 1 minute. 5 is too long.
Yeah, exactly. Not before too long, my friends. Okay, so it depends on you. That's how long it would take. And the example of this is if you have 3 buckets who are parked outside on a sunny day, and one of those buckets they're all filled with water, but one of them is very clear and still, okay? And the other 2 is wavy and murky, okay? Now, all of them are reflecting sunlight, for sure. Now, the clear bucket will have one advantage. We call that the wise person. Now, is that clear bucket going to remain clear all the time, the water in the bucket? No, water, right, it changes. So the quality of the mind, that water represents the quality of the mind. The quality of the mind changes. But once you have a clear enough water mind, you're able to see the reflection of the sun perfectly. There's no ambiguity about it anymore. This is why we say you need masteries of the senses and karma yoga to make that water very still, so that you can see at least once. Once you see that knowledge, the moment you see the sun, we call it akandakara vritti or brahmakara vritti. Moment you see that truth, even if from then on that water becomes murky, it doesn't affect you anymore, because now you know that which lights up all the creepy crawlies in my water, in my mind, that's the sun that's not affected by the creepy crawlies. But I needed to come to that point of clarity in the mind so that I can see that which shines, all the stuff in this water, you know, the thought, this, the emotion, that, all of that, that light does not belong to the bucket. That's called reflected light. That light actually is one of the sun. That is the total light. Now, once you see what lights up my mind is that sun, which is not touched by the mind stuff, the stories, the karma this, the karma that. Even from then on, if you forget, you know, about your life, your name, or you know, the mind gets a little bit convoluted, you can never go back again. Whereas the other 2 minds, they're too preoccupied with cleaning up their stuff because it's a burden. You know your nature is freedom. And you know when you carry all these limitations, it's a real burden. And you're so preoccupied of just cleaning up the mind, which is natural. You can't blame anyone for this because this is how we, you know, start out. So therefore, what is param shantim adhigachati? What is this highest peace? It is where you recognize that which lights up the purity or impurity of my mind is me. The mind does not define who I am. See, param shantim is all shanti at once. You do not have levels of param shantim. That's called relative peace. Param shantim is maximum shanti, peace, all at once. It can never be more or improved. What is that? How does that express in the world? You say, look at this. Let my thoughts be. Let these thoughts go. Let them be. I'm not bothered by that. Let them be. I'm genuinely not bothered by that. Why? Because the thought is just intelligence. Wherever the thought is, Ishvara is there. Wherever Ishvara is, I am there. I'm okay with that. Notice, we did not speak about emotions. Param Shantim, the highest peace, did not mention emotions. It just said, who am I? I am that which lights up all emotions, the mind, the absence of thoughts, presence of thoughts, all of that. That's my real nature. So Vedanta's got nothing to do with feeling great. That's your stuff. If you want to feel great, go and drink an orange juice. It's just, right, knowing what is my truth.
Is it okay to say, like, we're talking about meditation, right? And I know it's a state of mind, but having a mind without any thoughts and then eventually without even I thought, would it not reveal or give you a glimpse of what that truly is? You just need to know it once, right? As you said, after that, you can come out of your meditation or samadhi, but you know, once you get a revelation of this.
Okay, sure. I know what you're saying. If you come out And from that moment on, you're clear. You don't need another meditation just to confirm your experience. Then the job has been done. But if you come out of samadhi or some intoxicated experience, like magic mushrooms or DMT and so on, and you come out, and now you're going, wow, that oneness was amazing. Now I need to have one more hit to reach that. Then you have not understood. Once you understand what is Param Shantim, from that moment on, even if you are given the most greatest intoxicated experience, it doesn't overshadow you anymore. You're no longer going, oh, wow, I am, and this beautiful experience is here. That is clear. Before, they were like this, right? They were so intricately, so entwined that you were like, I've got to have this because I was that. You're not that. That was an experience. Experience comes and goes. So once the knowledge takes place, no beautiful experience, no matter how amazing it is, it doesn't touch me. I am here. This is an experience that is clear every moment. It never stops. Okay. Now, if meditation can do that for you, then it's done its job. Objection comes. What if I choose to live on my own terms and I don't listen to this? What will happen then? Well, Krishna is going to give us a message next week. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.